And I think we are live. Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. I do hope the audio works this time. So if you are somewhere listening to me, a little thumbs up would be lovely. Today we are talking about how to measure stress. Last time we discussed about how do we help people to be less superhuman. Me, a little thumbs up. And this time, sorry for the echo. And this time we are going to looking into how do we get to a place where we know as a leader, how do we measure stress? Are we ready? Great. Right. To start with, we are going to look into the 4 types of stress. What is stress? And also kind of what is that as a definition? What kind of different stresses can we experience? We will also look at how to measure it and what kind of rest does a human mind need. And my gift for the Valentine's Day is a one-on-one. How to run a simple one-on-one that's focused on well-being. Now, because it's Valentine's Day, this frame actually works both in work life and private life. So if you have today a friend who is struggling with their well-being, you can even try this with them. So that's at the end a little Valentine's Day gift that I'm going to share with you. Let's move ahead. For those who are maybe seeing me for the first time, I am Zora, originally from Finland, lived here in Switzerland for over 20 years, also done 20 years of HR in companies like Apple, Ericsson, Deloitte, IKEA. I'm a psychologist by education. Don't let that scare you off. I am very, very kind and gentle person. And I do executive coaching and development, as well as culture journeys for corporations. But I said you didn't come here to hear about me or learn about me, but more to learn about how can you level up your way as a leader to measure stress. Let's start. So just to understand what is stress. Stress is your body's way to say, I don't have enough resources to what is being demanded from me. And it's basically, it can be a pleasant or unpleasant request or demand, but it generates because the way body is sensing that you don't have enough resources, it creates a physical, mental, or an emotional tension. And that's what the body then tries to react to. And of course, again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the comments and I'll pick them up. So it's basically body saying, I'm expected to climb a mountain, which is way too big to my abilities. And so let's look at the 4 types of stress that people experience, both at work life, but also individually in their private lives, because these apply. Our brain and body react the same way at workplace than they react privately as well. So the first one is called eustress. So not all stress is bad, because there is also eustress, which is basically your body is saying, wow, we have something exciting coming up. Something, maybe a new job or an event where you are going, you're feeling nervous. And what the body does is it's increasing your dopamine levels, which will help you to pursue that achievement and that goal. And also it's increasing your endorphin levels, which is the feel-good, the happiness hormone that also athletes and you get that from physical exercise. That's kind of like a natural painkiller that will let you, when you're doing something that you really enjoy or you are excited about positively, it will help you to go through that. So not all the stress is bad. You have eustress. That is also where the body is in a similar way reacting to something that feels like a mountain, but says, you know what, we are going to go through this. So that's the first type of stress we can experience. Then you have 3 types of distress. So eustress is a positive type of a stress, and distress is then when the kind of like the engine starts to run out of the fumes or increase the fumes to survive. There you go. So first one, imagine you are going to work and you have a really, really important meeting coming up. Maybe it's with your leader, maybe it's with a client, and you've prepared, you are ready. And then this happens. You are in the traffic and there's a massive traffic jam. That's what we call acute stress. This is something that just happens, and your body will react with 2 ways. First, the adrenaline will spike. You're kind of like the fight, flight, freeze. And that's where also you can see road rage appear, where people kind of get into fight mode and get angry in those situations or when in the car. But also your noradrenaline will spike, which means your focus will be super clear, and your reaction time as well is increased. So your alertness and focus are increased, as well as kind of what are you going to do? Your reaction, you will be tempted to do quick reactions rather than slow down, think, and kind of enjoy the traffic. And that's when you see sometimes people starting to cross the lines and try to kind of get out of those traffic jams as well. But that's an acute stress. It comes and it goes, and you experience it. Second, episodic acute stress. So this can be more, it's not something yet kind of permanent, but perhaps it's at work, perhaps it's at home, tensions, perhaps with partner or with a specific peer, but these kind of come episodically. And that creates a level of stress where, again, your adrenaline goes up. But over time, when these seem to kind of come around more often than just one, they start to raise also your cortisol, the stress hormone. Now, many people often ask me, so Zora, what's the difference between adrenaline and cortisol? This is how I explain it, rather like in a metaphoric way. Adrenaline is like gasoline. You throw gasoline on a fire and it kind of bursts quickly onto flames, and that's kind of like the quick reaction. Cortisol is like kerosene, stays in the body a lot longer, and the longer it stays in the body, the more damage it starts to do, because it's basically telling your body, well, we have a problem and we need to stop doing everything else in our body other than just fight and solve this problem. And studies have showed that when people are having a high level of cortisol, their hair doesn't grow anymore, their nails don't grow anymore. Like the body is basically saying everything else, we're going to put it aside as long as we are focused on this topic and solving it. So that is an episodic acute stress where the adrenaline is high, and the cortisol starts to kind of create itself there as well. And then comes the chronic, the third one or the fourth one. So we had the eustress, which is the positive type of stress. We had the acute stress, which is the traffic jam. And then we had the episodic acute stress, which are those reoccurring maybe conflicts or tension moments that you have. And then you have chronic stress. And that's when the cortisol is now on top. and the adrenaline still pushes through. But that's actually, so the cortisol has taken place in your body constantly. And as you have, those who have followed me and listened to the previous Level Up lives, the higher the production of cortisol in your body, and cortisol is the stress, the lower the production of oxytocin, which is the love and the bonding and the connection and the trust hormone. So if you have somebody who is on high levels of chronic stress and cortisol, they biologically are not wired to bond, to trust, to connect, feel that kind of a connection with others. And that's the higher one there in a chronic stress. And adrenaline is still the one that pushes through. Adrenaline is the one who still kind of surges and makes you in moments of despair still operate. But that's where over time you may start to have some heart challenges or other somatic challenges that you are facing. I hope those 4 types of stress help you to understand, okay, what as a leader do I need to know about the types of stress so I can help my teams when I observe. And now you can think about your team and say, okay, so who might be having this chronic type of stress? Who might be having maybe more episodic or acute stress? And who is on a eustress mode? Excited, and you can see them, wow, they are on fire, but for all the right reasons. And then how to measure stress. Now, many leaders who I've been working with say, well, I'm not a psychologist, I don't know how to measure stress. And often if a leader is stressed, if a leader is on a chronic stress mode, they are not able to, for biologically as they are wired, they are not able to empathize and see the levels of stress in others. So before you can actually measure stress in others, you need to measure it in yourself and lower it down. And then your mind and body are going to be more receptive to seeing what's happening in my team. But yeah, there are kind of like medical ways of measuring stress. So measuring your cortisol levels in your body or your heart rates. As a leader, you probably are not going to do that. But there are different ways that you can still act. You don't need to be a psychologist to actually take a moment and see, okay, what am I observing? So what do you typically see when somebody is under stress? First thing you probably see is a bit of a performance or productivity challenges. There's a change. There's perhaps maybe a sudden peak and then a slump, and then peak and a slump. So there comes volatility to help kind of cover over those moments where an employee who might be, for example, previously high performing and then goes through maybe private life or work life stress periods, they generate volatility. So that's the first thing you can observe. I'm going to pull this one from Ben's. Love this. Smartwatches can be good use case for stress measuring. Absolutely. As an ex-Apple, I love what the Apple Watch can also do. I'm not promoting that to anyone, not getting any kind of payments by it if I do. So, but yeah, that's true. That's something that you can have on yourself and see, hey, how was today for me? How am I sleeping? How am I, what's my heart rate in different situations? So that, thanks, Benz, for that insight there. And that's something that you can first do yourself and share as a leader with others, as a role modeling, saying, you know what, this is how I measure my stress as well. But yeah, so first you would probably see as a leader, you notice kind of changes in performance and productivity. Then what you can also do is on a team and collective level, but also individually, observe three things: decision making, body language, and communication. So as we remember, when adrenaline starts to spike up, remember that that traffic jam situation. When your adrenaline goes up, so does your noradrenaline go up, and therefore your kind of quick decision making comes. You try to increase your reaction time. And if you as a leader notice that the team, there's different ways of making decisions. Of course, if a team is in a flow and in a high kind of pace mode, stress is different type of a decision making. So if you see that the team is making quick decisions because of they are under stress versus they are in a high pace mode where they are actually doing smart decisions and slowing down occasionally and then making that decision. So in a way, decision making process can really help to show if a team or individual is also in stress. Are they able to slow down and reflect on what the decision is and make really reflected decisions? Or are they kind of in traps of this noradrenaline that's just making them react quickly? Body language, that's also another one. Slumped shoulders, facial expressions. That's part of leadership, to be able to spot that and say, hey, that's not how I have gotten to know you, and I wonder what's going on. And communication. When we are under adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, our communication changes because our body has gone into a fight, flight, or freeze. And that means that our kind of neocortex, the logical brain, has almost like been put aside. So we become more emotional as well. And therefore, our reactions can be very much emotional. And therefore, our communication can sound edgy and put other people perhaps not at ease, but on their toes. And the last way how you can measure stress is by regular check-ins. And this is the kind of gift for today that I'm going to share with you, a simple way, because so many leaders often tell me, you know what, Zora, but I'm not a psychologist. I will rather give them a hotline number and ask them to call there. And we know how many people call those hotline numbers. The statistics show that not many. People want to rely on their leaders, not on some stranger on a hotline when that happens. So I think those three ways are things that a leader can do easily. You don't need to be a psychologist to do those. And I'm going to share with you a simple way to how to do a kind of like a well-being check-in. Let me take another one. Here comes from, hello, Maria. Stress shows up in your body, and that's a signal to pause and focus on you. Ah, yes, that is a really good one, because that's true. When the adrenaline and cortisol start to spike up, they increase our blood pressure. We will feel maybe flushed. We might feel our heart racing. And as you are also, I'm sharing another comment from you, Maria. Yeah, what is your body telling you? Kind of like some people under stress have insomnia. Some people under stress have digestive issues or headaches. Absolutely true. So these kind of psychosomatic reactions will increase during those times. And being kind of sensitive to those and recording first what's happening in me as a leader is a really important one before you can help others. There's another question. How can leaders create a culture where team members feel safe discussing their stress levels without stigma? I love this question, because at the end, you know what? No employee will discuss with you their stress if they see you as a superhuman. Last time in our Level Up, we talked about how do we start to show vulnerability? How do we start to share with the others that, you know what, we struggle too. And this is how we are managing it. You don't need to kind of pour over the table all your life and your struggles. But if you are coming across as a superhuman, nobody will open up to you about their vulnerabilities and struggles. So how do we create that culture is by leaders going first and sharing, I'm going to do these check-ins with you because I know how important it is for me to have my conversations with my leader about the well-being. So I want to give to my team that as well. So, and over time, people will start to learn that it is safe to share about the struggles, and there is care and support that they will receive instead of judgment. But that's actually the whole idea of the one-on-ones that I'm going to share. So let's move ahead to there. So that's the next step. So we've covered the 4 types of stress, how to measure stress, and now we're going to quickly look into the types of rest we all need. And that's also a way to first do a self-inventory. Which of these 7 ways am I good at? Which of these 7 ways I really, really suck at? So let's have a look. Physical, which means your body needs to sleep, rest, not all the time be active and doing something. How much are you giving yourself a physical rest? This is my heel of Achilles. My sleep hygiene is bad. And that's where I have the biggest kind of like a chance to improve my own well-being often. Mental one. Studies have showed that if people are on back-to-back meetings, especially during COVID time when we were sitting in front of our screens and we had back-to-back meetings and no breaks in between, our brains go in overdrive. They start to go into a stress mode rather than being able to have a little rest 10, 15-minute rest that cools the brain down as well. So how do you help yourself and your brain give a little mental rest during the daytime? 10 minutes, the studies tell that just 10 minutes of letting it rest, let your mind just kind of empty itself before you go into your next meeting is a really good way to be fully present and at your best in the next meeting. Sensory. Oh, this one. Any parent of teenagers know that this is a challenge, like for me. But yeah, how do you help all the sensory stimulation, TVs, gadgets, beeps and sounds, scrolling through your social media? How do you take a rest from sensory stimulation? Emotional. How do you find a place? Maybe it's a good friend. Maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's a coach with who you have that kind of emotional rest. You don't just like keep on collecting all those emotions and feelings, but you find an outlet and provide yourself an emotional rest. Social rest, which is then how do you find time for yourself? Maybe it's a walk in the forest. Maybe it's just like letting yourself out of the social connections and evening meetings and whatnots, and say, you know what, I'm just taking time for myself. And that's when comes the spiritual. And spiritual, this has nothing to do with religious. Spiritual is more like, how do you help your mind go back to yourself? Who am I and what do I want to become? And that's more the spiritual kind of rest, where you start posing yourself the questions of what's the next level of me. And the last one is creative. So maybe how do you give your mind the rest of not always be troubleshooting and problem solving, but actually learning something new. Maybe it's a book you want to read. Maybe it's learning to play a guitar, or maybe it's painting something or learning a new hobby, which gives your brain a different type of a rest again. Let me quickly take few comments there. Rest is to restart again at new mode. Yes, that's absolutely what it is. It helps you to kind of restart and reset. Because if you never rest, yeah, your body is, as they have studied, that if somebody who doesn't sleep, like myself, bad habit, your body goes almost in a drunk-like state, which is not good. Here we go. Next one. As I promised, let's go and have a look at the one-on-one frame that I'm going to share with you. And before I do that, just reminding you what's next. Next weekend and next Friday, we will look at how to spot the burnout. What can you do as a leader to really be able to recognize the early signs, also the late signs? That's probably very interesting for some. And the following week, how to build resilience. Yeah, those are the upcoming one. Next month, we are gonna dive into coaching more, and how do you help develop a more coaching style, in your leadership style. But here we go. 4 steps. You don't need to be a psychologist to do this. And I'm going to walk you through it step by step. First, purpose. You want to enter that conversation with clarity on the purpose of the connect. You clearly state that my goal is to learn how I can support your well-being better as a leader. And this connect is not about the KPIs. It's about how you are doing. So you create almost like a container of care and make the other person feel like, ooh, we are not looking into my KPIs. This session, whether it's 15 minutes or half an hour, is only about me and how I'm feeling. Second, you provide an observation. You share an observation and seek to understand it without judgment. You could say, hey, in the meeting, you were very silent. But what was in your mind? Don't judge and say, you know what, you should be, I don't know, smiling and more active, but seek to understand without judging, saying, hey, I'd like to understand what was in your mind. Or if somebody is in eustress, you might say, hey, you seem to be on fire these days. Hey, tell me, what's the magic? That's the best way to start to open up the conversation on stress, when you start pointing out the moments of eustress, because you catch them when they are excited about something. You can then more easier catch them when they are in distress. And that creates a sense of connection where the employee feels like, hey, he or she notices what's going on. Then options. You explore options and without taking the lead. And this is where many leaders don't want to even go into well-being conversation, because they feel like, well, what should I do? And I don't know how to get out. But actually, you're just asking options. What options have you tried? What holds you back from taking action? And that builds ownership. That helps you as a leader guide them to own their actions and steps rather than you trying to solve. You are not giving. I usually, when I do this coaching, I don't give advice. I pose questions. And the last one is really around the action. What's the one key takeaway or action that we are going to take out of this connect? And also you ask the employee, what can I do to better support your well-being? And that creates a sense of support, that my leader is there. And then in the next meeting, you can follow up and say, so did you try it? Whatever they committed to do. And like that, if you do that regularly, I can guarantee you magic will happen in terms of the well-being, but also openness. You can do this in a team, collectively, individually, at work, but also you can, as said, it's Valentine's. If you have a friend who is struggling, you can do this as well with them without being in a work context. There you go. 4th step. Now go give it a try. Where will you find this? In the lounge. The lounge is free for anyone. to access all these replays and these keynotes. So go grab it there after the session. And this time I'm going to actually go into the lounge and try something it's called the hot seat event. So I'm going to go there in and try the functionality of going live there and answering any question. I don't know how it's going to go, but thumbs up. Hope it goes well. Thank you for watching. From Jen, still, stress isn't just about how you feel, it's how your body reacts. Absolutely, Jen. It's definitely also like, it's not only the emotions, but it's those reactions that you have from your body as well. Great. I want to have a punctual landing as always. Thank you so much. And as May is also saying, happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And join me in the lounge if you have time to see how this hot seat event goes. All right. Wish you a wonderful, wonderful day.